and if I go in, you can just see, yeah, it just runs there, showing the 32.98, and the overall profit then is 114 for the week. I probably could have done better, to be honest. I could have configured things a little bit differently and generated more income, but it's you kind of learn as you go. So next time I'll maybe increase the BTC save, and I'll explain all this shortly. I just wanted to show you that the your payments and your profits from automatic trading are all tracked on the website, and you can always evaluate the service provided. Now I just wanted to highlight when this value, so your actual profits, this is after payments, so this is already deducted. Any software payments are made during automatic trading, so obviously that they could be none if you close it down before automatic trading. The buffer hits 100%. You might have no payments attached to it, but the point is this actually includes your payments, and then obviously your payments will be listed here when you're making payments. Okay, so I'm just going to restart TREX. Okay, so let's see, the way the security works in TREX is it's all just saving a file. It has your API keys encrypted, and you can delete that file if you want to start again. But if you forget your password, it's the only way to get in. I built the system and I wouldn't be able to get into it if I didn't know your password. So it's very secure the way it protects your keys. It's good to know where this file is located, and the software will inform you of that. Just so if you ever want to uninstall it or stop using it, delete it just to be on the safe side. And I'm sure nobody's going to start trying to decrypt files to get keys. Well, you never know, but I'd say it would be a lot more effort than it's worth if it was possible. So yeah, it's good security in the system. I'm just going to log in now. So it's just basically reading from the file then, and decrypting the keys and just putting them in for TREX to use, and obviously nobody can read them then off the screen as well. Now your password, basically when you set up your account, the first password you use will be what's used for your keys. Now when you go onto the website, it forces you to change your password, but that's not the password you use to log into the bot. It's the original password you enter. I just wanted to make sure that the actual Bandwagon Hunter website doesn't even have access to your passwords as soon as you change it. So right, so just hit connect then, re-enter my password. Yeah, and you can see that part of the screen then's changed. So it's just showing you the effective configuration. The settings we're using here. So the groups, you probably remember from the groups grid in the previous section there, where it was showing all the different groups, and you can set them actually up here, whether you want to add groups, remove groups, create a new group. Set them all different values. I'll explain these in a minute, but this is how the bot actually behaves. So if you set these one way, you might make a lot of money. If you set them a different way, you might lose a lot of money. So it's important to understand what these are for. And they do default to sensible values, so as long as you don't start changing away from what the software defaults it to, you should be okay. But the idea is there's only a few of them here. Over time you get familiar with how they work, and you'll be able to improve your strategy. Okay, so I'll come back to that in a second. I just wanted to talk about this redistribute tool and the currencies grid and stuff. So essentially, these filters here control what coins you're interested in. So it's actually they filter this drop down here. So you can see I'm only interested in unused currencies that are not in any groups. So ones I do have a wallet for, I actually own currency in, that are greater than that price, and that's those coins there. And I can basically pick a coin and add it to the group. Now they're not in any groups. If it's uncheck that, then it's going to show ones that are in groups as well, and I can pick one and delete it from whatever group. So you can actually control your groups quite easily. And it's the important thing to remember is these filters apply to this drop down. To control what you're viewing in the grid, you either navigate, change group, or check this box here. say target all groups. So this here is now got all the coins in all my groups. I can do things like order them by, say, the number of loans for each coin, and it'll show you green ones, white ones and red ones. I'll explain that in a little second. I just want to explain what number of loans is. So in a group you're setting the loan size, so it's the BTC value. Say I set the loan size to that much BTC, it actually tells you, well, that's £9.63, so it converts it to your local currency. And yeah, the local currency is actually set by your country you're set to in the previous section, where you basically just say your country and it'll know what currency it needs to convert it to for you then based on that. Yeah, so I'll just put that back to where it was. Okay, and yeah, so basically the color coding on the grid then is to do with the redistribute tool. So the redistribute tool just allows you to move funds between currencies manually without using auto trading, and it's very useful if you want to just make sure your auto trading is ready to go. So you want to make sure you have funds in most of your currencies essentially, so they can actually lend money out to another currency and then get it paid back hopefully with profit. But if they don't have funds to lend out, then they're just coins that can take a loan as opposed to taking a loan and giving a loan. So it's a good idea to keep your portfolio nicely balanced. And you can use this tool to do it. So basically here I'm saying, right, I want to sell one loan's worth, so that much for the group the coin belongs to, 578 in my local currency. So we have one loan's worth for currencies holding more than 2 loans. So you can actually see it's highlighting those ones on the grid, anything more than 2 loans. So if I hit the sell button, it would sell 1 loan's worth out of all them. If I hit the buy button, it would buy 1 loan's worth for anything less than 1 loan. So we'll buy into all those. Or I could just hit both, in which case it would do all the sells first and then it would do all the buys. It does it in that order just in case you might need the Bitcoin you're using for the sales to use for the buys, so it does it in that order to give it the best chance of working. But if you try and run a batch that's not valid, so you might, if TREX will calculate, no, you're going to run out of Bitcoin, so it's not going to do that batch, and it'll let you know, it'll block you from doing it. You can also see yeah, these checkboxes here where you can target, you know, the best risers for sale or the worst fallers for buy, and the reason for that is just to enable you to make profits without even using automatic trading. So the idea is when you go on to TREX and you're trading manually, a very common tactic is just people go in, check their wallets, order by percentage change, and they sell out of the ones that have went up the most and buy into the ones that have went down the most, and you're basically just pumping money out of the market. So it's a very effective strategy, and if you keep on it, if you do it several times a day, then you really can make a good amount of income just doing that. That means actually getting into each market individually and trying to get a good price for each buy and each sell that you're doing, and you know, it's very time consuming. So using TREX, you can basically do the same thing. So I'm only looking for ones that have went up over 5%. I'm only looking for ones that have went down over 5%. Now the grid updates to show me the ones that match that criteria. So it's only got 1 on the buy side and several on the sell side. It's going to sell 4 of those and buy into 1 of those. But I can just on the buy side I can just increase that. So say I do 4, that'll keep my BTC balance roughly the same. And I can just do both then. Run both the jobs, and you can actually see here. I'll just show you this wee second. It tells you what the effect it's going to have on your Bitcoin. So all sales will grow Bitcoin by that much, all buys will shrink Bitcoin by that much, and doing both will leave you that much Bitcoin. And it's important you have a certain amount of Bitcoin before you start an automatic trading session. So it's you're wanting to, you know, the amount of Bitcoin you have is important, and you can see it here is green, so that's saying you've got enough to start automatic trading. Okay, so I'll just run that job, run both the jobs. Okay. And yeah, so it's going to do the sales first. It's going to sell 1 out of those, and it's going to buy the final four loans worth in the one in that one. It's going to do that last. Okay, so just while that's going on, I'll just describe a little bit about the different values in configuring your groups, and what they actually mean. Okay, so the first one, poll intervals, quite simple really. It's you know, how often does TREX poll for new prizes? Now, it actually checks for prices every 10 seconds regardless of what you set this to, but this is about, controlling the window, if you know what I mean. So if that's set to 5 for this group, that's every 5 minutes it's going to get a new price from TREX, and it's going to update the bottom grid and show you the percentage change, and then make decisions based on that percentage change with regards to the rest of the parameters below. So if I set the poll interval to 5, that's 5 minutes. The 10 polls would be 50 minutes. So the actual price window we're talking about is a 50-minute window. You're interested in what the percentage change is over the last 50 minutes, the last 10 polls. It's a good idea to have these different in the groups, because TREX actually synchronizes everything based on the poll interval. And if they were all set to the same value, then TREX would do nothing for 30 seconds and then try and do everything at once, and it kind of doesn't really work as well as it does when they're different values. And that's the poll interval. It's quite simple. It's about synchronization. Loan size BTC is the actual size of the loans for this group. So you can set it different for different groups. And as I say, when you change it, it shows you what that equates to. So you can actually see the real money equivalent in your local currency. Yeah, so everything's based on the loan size for that group then. Max group loans is very, very important. It's a very, very important one. The reason for that is because it determines how fast you want profits, or how long you're willing to wait. The higher you set that number, it means the longer you're willing to wait for profits. And yes, then profits might be bigger. There is more to gain, but you're going to have to wait for it, because you really have to wait for markets to fluctuate to the extent where TREX has made a mistake, it turns into a good decision at some stage, because the things that have went the wrong direction end up coming right back in the right direction. That can take 5 days, 6 days. That can take a long time. So if you're going to do loads of loans and you want a good payback rate, you want to really see the climb will be starting from a negative position. You will get a real fast climb at some stage, but whether it's good enough, whether it's big enough, it's risky. So for safe profits, keep that value low, the max group loans. I prefer to do it that way. If you're planning on not making many payments to bandwagonhunter.com, then keep that value low as well, because if you set that value high, then you're waiting longer for payments, and then you can't close an automatic trading session before the payment buffer fills, which means you're going to end up making a payment to bandwagonhunter.com. So yeah, keep that value low until you know what you're doing, you're more confident with the software. But yeah, there's definitely potential for making more money there in the long run. Yeah, max coin loans sort of less important, but you can control how many loans come out of a certain currency. So if you want to keep hold of a certain amount of a currency, it'll basically make sure it doesn't go beyond that. So max X weights, the grid to the left just under the groups grid basically is like a holding area. So when TREX wants to buy or sell something, if the price isn't right, it just puts it in that holding area and waits. Now that could be a repayment, and it doesn't have to be a new loan. That could be a repayment, and if a repayement's not going through, there's a wee X, sell X or buy X, and that counter keeps incrementing. And what this is saying is, okay, once it gets to this value, just forget about it. Don't move the funds, don't track the loan, just let it go. Free them funds out to be used for something else. So that's what that is. I wouldn't set it too low myself. But if you set it too high, then it can become locked. Where the borrowed funds won't be used by another currency, and it'll just yeah, so there's a balance here. There's so many different permutations you can use in configuring it. And there's so much markets and so much activity going on. It's been a real sort of big data problem sort of producing this application, but there's certainly a lot of permutations you could try that have never been tried before. So yeah, default loans below -60. So if a loan loses 60% of its value, it's the same again, just forget about it and pretend it didn't happen, don't track it, and free those funds that we use for something else. So it's kind of like accepting the loss, but effectively those prices can turn around. So the losses aren't set in concrete where profits kind of are, because they're getting paid back with profit. So that's how when I use the analogy of the car being jacked up, and that's the reason why. Okay, so max loan life polls, sort of easy to understand really. If the loan gets older than that, forget about it, don't track it anymore. Repayment trigger 125%. So for most loan types, it doesn't wait until they start falling before paying back at this rate. If it hits 125%, it gets paid back for most loan types. There's some ones where it will let it climb, like a BTC safe loan, which is probably the trickiest bit to understand, just in what I'm about to describe. Yeah, before the BTC safe is actually simple when you think about it, right? So if something goes up over 10%, then sell out of it one loan per minute and keep selling out of it while that changes over that value. So if the pole window keeps moving forward and you still stay over 10%, it'll just keep selling out. So if it goes up 20%, 30%, it'll sell out at that price as well, as long as it's over 10%. The thing about the BTC safe is it won't use borrowed funds, so that relates to the max group loans. So you can see here, this here loan book 0%. This is trying to help you. So if I was to put max group loans to 25, you can see the loan book's 45% of the actual value of the group. So the loan book, this is the possible size of the loan book, is the actual loan size multiplied by the maximum group loans, and that's 45% of your overall value, and it's saying that's okay. But if I turn that up any higher, you can see it's not happy with that. It won't let me start the bot now in that mode, because basically the BTC safe, which is very profitable, doesn't have access to enough of your funds, and it wants access to at least 50% of your funds. Yeah. So that's it in a nutshell. I've kind of rambled on and talked very fast, and I kind of do that when I'm nervous. So I hope you're able to follow most of that, and I hope you think about maybe downloading the application. If you want to make some money automatically trading digital currency and manually trading digital currency, TREX can not only save you a lot of time but also make you money. Thanks very much, and welcome to bandwagonhunter.com.